Hello, YouTube. With the word UFO, we usually imagine disc-shaped objects, the so-called saucers, spheres, or cigars. But they do not always have this form. There are dozens of their modifications, and one of them is a whole flying city. I have collected interesting materials through the years, and some come from the reports of the Belarusian researchers of the UFOCOM. And they also have been doing collection of such reports. So strange cities floating in the sky were not uncommon until the beginning of the 20th century. For example, somebody named Anikevich in his book Senensky District of Mogilov Province, published in 1907, reported that about 20 years ago, the priest Kurnevich, traveling from Nemoita to Seno in broad daylight, saw a city with churches and huge houses in the sky. In recent years, such stories have been treated with a fair amount of skepticism. While at the same time, there have been very interesting sightings. For example, in Nigeria, there was a mass observation of one of such flying cities. According to an article published in People's Daily, everything happened in the border village of Dulali, located in the Bauchi state in Nigeria in March of 2011. Saidu Mishai had just finished his morning prayer at the local mosque and was preparing to light a stove for work because he sells hot tea. Suddenly, Said noticed an all-pervading and extremely bright light enveloping everything around, and suddenly realized that it was the heavens themselves that were falling on his village. He finally overcame his fear and looked at the sky. There appeared something wide and huge. It looked like a cloud that appeared out of nowhere and slowly flew over the village at the height of the trees. The cloud was transparent, and I saw beautiful high-rise buildings inside it, as well as roads with cars. It really resembled a flying city. And from it, I heard the noise of cars as if I were at the Ashak cement plant. That's what the observer said. If Said was the only witness to this phenomenon, then his words could be doubted. But the flying city was seen by hundreds of villages and nearby neighborhoods, including the imam of the village-only mosque. Local farmer Dauda Mohammed, in turn, told about how he noticed a cloud. Dauda stated that when he looked up and saw the object moving slowly over the village, he was very surprised, but he was not afraid. He explained in detail how he saw the color of buildings that were woven from other moving and massive clouds. Another local resident, Ibrahim, a 10-year-old boy, pointed to the tops of the trees and said that an unidentifying flying city had passed them and appeared on the other side. But their crowns did not even shake. We believe this is a sign that something significant will happen in this small village soon. Something like a major invention that will affect the life of all mankind, said Yau Kaugama, a politician who accompanied the correspondents of the People Daily newspaper who were reporting on this incident. Imam Malam Shehu Liman confirmed the general opinion of the villagers, in particular said that he believes that Allah used these visions to open our eyes, which could now see how the jinn spirits live in our own world. Exactly 2 weeks after appearing in the village, the flying object visited it again at the same time and remained in the sky for almost an hour before disappearing again. Answering the question whether an official complaint or a message was made to the local authorities, the imam said that they did not see the need for such a message since the flying object did not harm anyone, and everyone was convinced that it was certainly a positive visit, not a negative one. In general, the phenomenon really falls under the category of UFOs, which are widely known and described in the West, but there is much less information about them on the African continent. And if you look through my videos, you'll find some interesting videos about Africa and paranormal phenomena there, including UFOs. According to some researchers, the incident also demonstrated the influence of religious beliefs and socio-cultural factors on human perception of this phenomenon, but the locals sincerely believed that they actually witnessed an act of divine will. It is interesting to trace the parallels of such visions with the ideas of the magical land of Magonia, from which not only flying cities but also the Flying Dutchman, the demonic black carriage, the wild hunting, ships of souls, etc., allegedly arrive. Sometimes a window opens into this wonderful world, and surprised observers can then contemplate unusual visions or mirage from other worlds. Many features that unite these visions with UFOs indicate a common origin. Cities in the sky, ships, and ghostly airships change their external form, manifesting themselves in a characteristic appearance for this era, for the era that the observation takes place. So according to researcher Peter Rogerson, today the mythology that filled the ghost ship with meaning has disappeared, as has the culture that fed it. There were only memories that look like random anomalies. Such anomalies are no longer connected with the myth because their disturbing power is so great. They invade reality from nothingness, but they're still very strong. Years ago, this Belarusian UFOCOM research organization published details of the appearance of a ghost town in the Burzyansky district of Bashkortostan. Alas, it is impossible to distinguish all the details described by witnesses in the photos. Therefore, on the one hand, such visions should be treated as a materialized prime example, and on the other, if they continue to appear, there is no doubt that we should continue to monitor their evolution in different regions of the planet. Mirages are a well-known phenomenon in science and quite understandable from a physical point of view, but still surprising and attracting the attention of people who are lucky enough to become accidental witnesses. There are also hypotheses about the possibility of the appearance of the so-called chronomirage, demonstrating objects that currently do not exist. And I've talked about it too, and you should check out my time travel videos as well. However, it is very difficult to prove the anomalous nature in a particular case of the manifestation of this natural phenomenon. Another reason to reflect on this topic was presented thanks to thanking the news that came from Bashkiria. In early December of 2013, a mirage of an unknown city appeared in the Brzezinski district against the background of local mountains. Unfortunately, the exact date was not announced by the local media. Only the time of the observation was reported, about 11:30 a.m. local time. According to weather conditions, it is known that the day was clear. The sky was clear. There's also no mention of specific places from where the mirage was observed. The television report said that a ghost town was observed near the village of Staro Supahangulovo, the administrative center of the Burzyansky district. The publication of the newspaper Republic of Bashkortostan, another name for Bashkiria, mentions Mount Akbek, over which the mirage was observed. Hence, it can be assumed that the eyewitnesses were observing from the section of the highway between the settlements of Gulyak-Berovo and Novomusyatovo. The case in Bashkiria is notable for the fact that there were quite enough witnesses of the mirage to talk about mass surveillance. Several cars stopped on the road, the passengers of which, noticing something strange on the horizon, were observing and even photographing an unusual phenomenon. The following are known from the specific names: Darigat Yamalov, librarian Farida Aidbaeva, the editor of the local district newspaper Tansulu Bagaudinov. It is reported that several dozen photographs were taken by eyewitnesses, but of which only one has become public so far. According to Darigat Yamalov, who was watching the mirage with friends, the horizon was completely painted blue-green. A biplane was clearly visible in the sky, and later houses began to appear. Tansulu Bagatudinova, who stopped her car near them, described the phenomenon in more detail, and then a strange shadow appeared on the horizon. I wanted to take a picture, but it quickly disappeared. Meanwhile, as on a huge screen, a view of a forest clearing appeared. It appeared and disappeared, and suddenly a whole city appeared before us. 5-story and 9-story houses above our Agbek mountain. Something incredible. A little further from the high-rise buildings, there are 3 village huts, and such a physical feeling that they were basically constructed quite recently. Darigat also talked about streets without traffic lights, windows in houses, a mosque-like building. Certain metamorphoses also occurred with the appearance of the mountains. The observation lasted quite a long time, but how it all ended is also unknown. It can be said that the observation of the mirage of an unknown city in the Berzansky district is a rather unique case for Russia in terms of the number of clearly known eyewitnesses, documentary evidence like photographs, and the possibility of conducting a specific study of it, at least as part of gaining experience in studying this alleged chronomirage. And now let's turn our gaze towards South America. On occasions, cities in the sky can be found over the territory of South America, but apparently their favorite place is Chile. Why it is on the territory of this Latin America country that the largest numbers of sightings of flying cities have been collected, according to some researchers, well, that's unknown, but the fact remains. It would be possible, of course, to attribute part of the eyewitness testimony to fantasies, but new documents appear in the archives of the Chilean Air Force every year, in which many testimonies of Chilean pilots about UFOs encounters in the form of flying cities are recorded. Years ago, at the initiative of the former commander-in-chief of the Chilean Air Force, Ramon Vega, he himself had repeatedly observed UFOs. He passed away, I believe, in 2006. A commission for the study of anomalous atmospheric phenomena was even created at the General Directorate of Civil Aviation of Chile. It was headed by Colonel Enzo Dinocera, director of the Civil Aviation School. I don't know who is heading it now. The commission scrupulously collected and systematized all the evidence of the observations of flying cities by both military and civilians, and presented a report that appeared on the pages of Chile's largest daily newspaper, La Tercera. I have not been able to obtain this report, but I'll ask my colleagues in Brazil. Maybe they can help, because I'm sure they have connections throughout South America and UFO research organizations. But let's go back to 1988. The pilots of the reconnaissance plane saw a sea of, as they assumed, city lights under them and thought that they were flying over the largest port in northern Chile, the city of Antofagasta. However, while the pilots were exchanging opinions about what they thought were faulty devices, the ground city began suddenly to rise up, and it flew. With difficulty pulling themselves together, the terrified pilots immediately returned to base. 8 years later, a similar case occurred in southern Chile between the cities of Punta Arenas and Puerto Williams. A little later, the uninvited guests also visited the airport in Santiago. An employee of the capital's airport, aircraft technician Joaquin Jimenez, reported, "It seemed to me that the sparkling city was flying at a speed of 50 miles per hour. It swam up to the runway, all shimmering with soft emerald light, and was almost landing when Something seemed to scare it. It immediately removed the green glow, emitted a ray of red light, and began to climb up at a high speed. All this lasted about 15 minutes. But let's travel to Asia. In October of 2015, multiple websites reported that a rare mirage known as Fata Morgana had appeared over the city of Foshan in the Guangdong province of China at an unspecified but recent time. The date of the purported anomaly wasn't referenced in any reports. This mysterious cityscape appearing in China's sky. There was a video of it released, actually, on Facebook some years ago. It is allegedly called Fata Morgana or an optical illusion. There's a couple of videos about it on YouTube, but this is just flat out bizarre. On October 18, 2015, the British independent news site published an article titled "Ominous Cloud Looming Over China Creates Apparition of Floating City." Footage of the phenomenon appears to show tower block-like formations over the city of Foshan in the Guangdong province of China, apparently bringing many people to a standstill in the street. It reportedly lasted only a few minutes before disappearing. Well, ufologists were interested in whether historical chronicles mention cases that can be considered as a UFO phenomenon. And, how much documentary evidence can we get, in the river of history, so to say. But it turned out that in 1762, 1818, 1820, and in other years, up to the beginning of 20th century, astronomers observed giant bodies moving against the background of the solar disk, contrary to the laws of celestial mechanics. And sometimes darkness fell on small areas of the Earth's surface, regardless of the pre-calculated solar eclipses. Well, I've done studies on such incidents in Siberia. There was one in 1938, and I mentioned it in my videos too. Very unusual cases. This could happen only for one reason, according to some researchers. A giant body appeared in the orbit of our planet, so gigantic that it was able to obscure even the sun. The darkness that suddenly descended on the Earth on a bright sunny morning or afternoon so frightened people that panic inevitably began. It even seemed to many that the end of the world has come. Some prayed furiously, others ended their lives. And there were cases reported throughout the world. There were also references in the old archives of various countries to mysterious planets that suddenly appeared in the near solar orbits and then just as suddenly disappeared. The famous French researcher of the phenomenon of flying cities, Maurice Desson, put forward the sensational idea that there are many artificial worlds flying in the universe, spaceships of unique design containing the population of entire planets. Moreover, UFOs, the so-called saucers, cigars, and others, are only reconnaissance ships, and their sharp increase in one place or another can mean only one thing. Another ship is on approach, and another floating city will be observed. It would be interesting to look at the records from the ancient times. But again, we're limited on how much we can get. Greeks and Romans would usually be the most available ancient records. But archaeology is helping us discover new facts about the ancient world, and there are researchers who work in the libraries and other areas and collect stories. And I will continue my research of the same and bring you interesting reports. And if you like my research, you can please support me through the links you'll find in the description to this video. And stay tuned for more interesting videos. Thank you.